For my teaching media literacy project, I focus on a K through 12 classroom lesson plan that will introduce students to critical media literacy as well as informational literacy and reading fluencies. This fifth grade service learning counter-ad was a project that I helped integrate technology with a teacher who was focusing on students investigating issues that dealt with animal rights. A counter-ad is an advertisement that a student creates to talk back to a company. They usually adapt some form of their slogan and kind of try to turn it on its head and directly speak to the company on the injustices that they are perpetuating. For this fifth grade service learning project, students had a 5-part process of creating a counter-ad. The first part of the counter-ad dealt with research information, where students investigated companies that might be involved in certain animal rights injustices. And the second step was they investigated a specific company that they chose to investigate these issues in much more depth, and they created a group brainstorm in the form of a Padlet. Next, each student designed an image by hand and created a slogan that directly spoke back to the company, trying to flip the words on what the company was using. And then next, students shared their counter-ad with the rest of the class and their slogan in the form of a Padlet. And each of these Padlets they used to generate peer feedback in order to make improvements. And finally, students tweeted out their counter-ad and their slogan to the company using hashtags as well as tagging the company in their posts. Before I get into the curriculum goals of this particular project, the main focus was on media literacy, in ways that students can understand media and know that no text is neutral and that all texts are created from a particular ideological position or perspective. The curriculum and content goals that could be tied in with this project are 2 common core standards. The first dealt with identifying an idea or text in which it conveys a particular message and provide a summary of this message and their own personal opinions or judgments of this summary. And next, students were asked to investigate information from a variety of media resources. For example, students investigated text online from the companies themselves. They investigated YouTube videos that the companies posted, and they also investigated blog posts in which people had critical opinions of these, and they evaluated whether those opinions were correct or not. Next, in terms of talking about media literacy and the goals of this project, one could really redefine literacy in the form of new literacies and the approach to understanding through different types of sources. For example, students use print literacy, where they read and found messages that were portrayed through text and also published in magazines. Students use visual literacy, where they constructed an image or design of their own to talk back to a company. Students use information literacy, where they found information online, they evaluated the validity of this information, and they applied it towards their own thesis. Next, students use critical media literacy in order to understand how media is portrayed and how it can be understood from multiple perspectives. And then students use news literacy in order to understand the current events and what this company may be facing, and also campaigns that this company may be using to portray itself in a positive light. And finally, digital literacy was definitely involved so that students could investigate information, document that information, and then use it as a works cited page upon the completion of their project. The instructional technology goals are best highlighted using the ISTE 2016 student standards. 2 standards that stand out in particular are number 3, Knowledge Constructor, where students critically curate a variety of resources using digital tools to construct knowledge. Also, Creative Communicator stood out as well, where students communicate clearly and express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes, where students use platforms such as Padlet, Poplet, and Twitter. The media formats that were chosen for students to deliver their message were designed using an instructional technology planning cycle. If, for example, the instructional goal was for students to create their own counter-ad, the approach was for them to choose the easiest format that would allow them to express themselves naturally. The tool that was selected was paper and pencil because 5th graders using an app such as Paper by 54 might be limited in their ability to express themselves creatively. However, if the instructional goal was for students to collaborate online and receive feedback from their peers, the approach was for students to use digital media. 3 of the particular digital medias that we used were Popplet, Padlet, and Twitter. Also, the integration was non-specific in that students could come to a computer lab to work on their counter-ad, they could use a Chromebook cart that was available to them, and also students actually had access to an iPad in the library for investigating research information. Though fair use and copyright issues were not directly mentioned during the creation of their own media, 2 artifacts that students could pull from were Wikimedia Commons and Creative Commons. Actually, students later on in the school year were instructed about how to pull images from Wikimedia Commons. However, in this particular project, these types of discussions did not take place. However, there were very mindful moments of discussion within class where students were looking up information about SeaWorld and how animals were abused for over 15 to 20 years and kept in cages. And during these moments, classes usually broke down into a discussion and talked about why this was happening and what could actually be done to stop it. And during these moments, students were encouraged to find information that allowed them to express themselves creatively and come with a solution in their counter-ad. Finally, one form of assessment that could be developed for this lesson was following the CML's KIT core concepts, in which students understood 5 core concepts, such as media messages are always constructed, media messages are created using creative language with its own rules, different people experience the same media message differently, media have embedded values and points of view, and most media messages are organized to gain profit and or power. Finally, I published these insights and everything I learned from this about a year ago on my blog. And looking back at this, I really understand now from a media literacy perspective on how to encourage students to think critically and really understand how media is constructed and how it can also be interpreted from many perspectives.